The string quartet was playing Pachelbel's Canon when I realized I had nowhere to sit. I stood at the back of the Harbor View Country Club ballroom, holding my small clutch purse with both hands, watching 200 guests find their assigned tables. Crystal chandeliers threw soft light across white linens and towering centerpieces of peonies and roses. My daughter Isabella's dream wedding, the one I'd worked 60-hour weeks for 3 years to pay for. But there was no table for the mother of the bride. I watched Isabella glide across the floor in her Vera Wang gown, the one we'd found at that boutique in Greenwich. Except we hadn't found it together. Her future mother-in-law, Victoria Ashworth, had taken her. I'd just received the bill. Let me back up, because I never imagined this day would end with me standing alone in a room full of people celebrating my daughter. My name is Caroline. I'm 62 years old, and until last year, I was married to Thomas for 34 years. He was a high school history teacher. I was a nurse at Yale New Haven Hospital. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. We raised Isabella in our modest colonial in Milford, gave her piano lessons and summer camps and a college education without loans. Thomas died of a heart attack 16 months ago. Sudden, no warning. One moment he was grading papers at the kitchen table. The next, he was gone. Isabella took it hard. We both did. She'd always been Daddy's girl. For the first few months after the funeral, she called me every night. We'd cry together, share memories, talk about how much we missed him. I thought grief was bringing us closer. Then, she met Marcus Ashworth at a charity gala in Hartford. He worked in private equity, came from old Connecticut money. The Ashworths had a compound in Fairfield and a cottage in Newport. Within 3 months, they were engaged. I was happy for her, truly. She was 28, successful in her own career as an attorney, and she deserved love after watching her father die. But something shifted after the engagement. The first sign was small. We were supposed to go dress shopping together, just the two of us. It was supposed to be our mother-daughter day, the kind I'd dreamed about since she was little. She canceled 2 hours before, saying Victoria had already made appointments at several boutiques and it would be easier if she just went with her. I told myself it was fine. Victoria knew those high-end shops. She was being helpful. The second sign came when I offered to host the engagement party at our house. I'd already started planning it, called the caterer I'd used for years, thought about which of Thomas's friends to invite so Isabella could feel her father's presence there. "Mom, that's sweet, but the Ashworths are hosting it at their club," Isabella said over the phone. Her voice had a new quality to it, something clipped and distant. "Victoria's already sent the invitations." "She sent invitations without telling me?" "It's complicated, Mom. There are certain people Marcus's family needs to invite. Business connections. You understand." I didn't understand, but I said I did. The third sign was the wedding planner. I'd assumed we'd look for one together, but Isabella hired someone Victoria recommended. When I asked to sit in on the first planning meeting, I was told it wasn't necessary. "We've got it handled, Mrs. Peterson," the wedding planner said when I called her directly. Her tone was polite but firm. "The bride and the Ashworths have a clear vision. We'll keep you updated." Except they didn't keep me updated. I learned about the venue choice from a Facebook post. I found out the wedding colors were champagne and sage green from a boutique owner when I went to look at mother of the bride dresses. The woman asked me which shade of green I was planning to wear, and I had no idea what she meant. When I called Isabella, she sighed. "Mom, I texted you about the colors last month." She hadn't. I had every text saved, but I didn't argue. Looking back now, I can see how it happened. Slowly, like water eroding stone, each small exclusion felt minor enough to excuse. Victoria had experience with these events. The Ashworths were paying for some things. Marcus's family was larger, more connected. Isabella was busy with work and wedding planning, but the truth was simpler and more painful. I was being written out of my own daughter's wedding. I realized it 3 months before the ceremony, when I stopped by Isabella's apartment with the quilt my mother had made, the one I'd always planned to give her as a wedding gift. It was a family heirloom, stitched with pieces of fabric from 4 generations of our family. Thomas's mother's wedding dress, my grandmother's Sunday best, Isabella's baby blanket. Victoria was there, going through fabric samples with the wedding planner. "Oh, Caroline, how thoughtful," Victoria said, barely glancing at the quilt I'd spread across the couch. "But I'm not sure it quite fits the aesthetic we're going for. The club has a very specific color palette, you understand. Perhaps you could save it for when they buy their first home?" Isabella didn't defend the quilt. She didn't say she loved it or that it meant something to her. She just nodded and said, "That's probably better, Mom." I folded it back up, feeling something crack inside my chest. That night, I sat in Thomas's old chair and cried for the first time since the funeral. Not for him, but for the daughter I was losing to people who measured worth in thread counts and country club memberships. But I still paid the bills. God, I paid every bill they sent. The venue deposit, $15,000. The photographer, $8,000. The florist, $12,000. The band, $6,000. The rehearsal dinner at the yacht club, $11,000. Every charge came to my credit card, the one I'd opened specifically for the wedding, planning to pay it off gradually from the life insurance money Thomas had left. I'd wanted to do this for her. For both of them, really. Thomas would have wanted Isabella to have the wedding of her dreams, but I started to wonder whose dreams we were actually funding. 2 months before the wedding, I got a call from the country club. "Mrs. Peterson, we need to discuss the seating arrangements," a woman named Jennifer said. She sounded uncomfortable. "Your name isn't on the family table list, and we need to know where to place you." My stomach dropped. I'm the mother of the bride. Surely I'm at the family table. That table is reserved for the bride, groom, best man, maid of honor, and both sets of parents. The Ashworths are listed, but we don't have you down. There must be a mistake. I thought so too. I called Miss Peterson's planner, and she said to direct all questions to Victoria Ashworth. I called Isabella immediately. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail, trying to keep my voice steady. She texted back 3 hours later. "Mom, there's limited space at the head table. Victoria thought you'd be more comfortable at a table with some of Dad's old colleagues. You know how formal these things are." I stared at that text for a long time. Comfortable, as if comfort was the issue. As if I should be grateful to be shuffled off with Thomas's former teacher friends, while Victoria sat at my daughter's side. I called the country club back. "Where exactly will I be seated?" Jennifer paused. "Table 17. It's near the back, by the kitchen doors." Table 17. Near the kitchen doors, while Marcus's mother sat at the head table as if she'd raised Isabella herself. That's when I should have said something. That's when I should have put my foot down. But I was so tired. Tired of fighting for space in my own daughter's life. Tired of being treated like an obligation rather than a parent. Tired of hearing Victoria's name in every sentence from Isabella's mouth. I told myself the seating didn't matter. I'd still be there. I'd still see my daughter get married. I was wrong about so many things. The day before the wedding, there was a rehearsal. I arrived at the church wearing a nice dress, carrying the pearl earrings I'd worn at my own wedding, thinking Isabella might want to borrow them for her something old. Victoria intercepted me at the door. She was wearing a cream-colored designer suit and smiling, but her eyes were ice. "Caroline, lovely to see you. The rehearsal is just for the wedding party and immediate family. We've got so many people, you understand. We'll see you tomorrow at the ceremony." Immediate family. I was not considered immediate family. I stood there in the church doorway, holding those pearl earrings, watching through the glass as Victoria walked my daughter down the aisle in the practice run. The Reverend was explaining the ceremony. Marcus's father was standing where I should have been standing. The wedding planner was directing everyone, and nobody noticed I wasn't there. Nobody except the woman standing next to me, another mother I didn't recognize. She touched my arm gently. "I'm Catherine, Marcus's aunt. Caroline, Isabella's mother." "I know," she said quietly. "I'm sorry. This isn't right." "It's fine," I said automatically. "It's just easier with fewer people." Catherine looked at me with something like pity. "My sister, Victoria. She's very particular about these things, about image, about who belongs where. She hesitated. You should know that tomorrow, during photos, she's requested a specific list. Family portraits only include blood relatives and the couple. She was very clear about that. I'm Isabella's mother. I know. That's why I'm telling you. I drove home in a daze. That night, I opened a bottle of wine, one of the expensive ones Thomas and I had been saving for a special occasion. I sat in our kitchen and drank the whole thing, crying until I had no tears left. In the morning, I put on the dress I'd bought 3 months ago when I'd still believed I'd be part of this day. It was a soft rose color, elegant but understated. I'd asked Isabella if she approved, and she'd said, "Whatever you want, Mom." What I wanted was to matter to my daughter again. The ceremony was beautiful. Isabella looked radiant walking down the aisle on Marcus's father's arm, because Victoria had decided it would be more traditional that way, rather than having her walk alone to honor Thomas's memory, which was what I'd suggested. I sat in the third row, not the first. The first 2 rows were reserved for the Ashworths. During the vows, I watched my daughter promise to love and honor Marcus. I watched Victoria dab at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. I watched Marcus's father beam with pride. And I wondered when exactly I'd become irrelevant. At the reception, I stood at the entrance of that ballroom, looking for my name on the seating chart. I checked every table, table 1 through 20. My name wasn't there. I found the wedding planner, a young woman with a headset and a clipboard. "Excuse me, I can't find my seat." She scrolled through her tablet, frowning. "Name? Caroline Peterson. I'm the mother of the bride." Her eyes widened. Oh no, Mrs. Peterson. I'm so sorry. There's been a miscommunication. The Ashworths were handling the final guest list, and she looked genuinely distressed. "There's no seat assigned to you." "No seat at all? We can bring in a chair at one of the tables, but they're all full." "I'm so sorry. This has never happened before." I looked across the ballroom. Victoria was at the head table, right beside Isabella. She was laughing at something Marcus said, one hand resting possessively on my daughter's arm, and I understood, finally and completely, what had been done to me. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't a miscommunication. Victoria Ashworth had systematically removed me from my daughter's wedding, and Isabella had let her. The wedding planner was still talking, something about squeezing in a chair, but I wasn't listening. I was watching Isabella stand for the first dance with her new husband. She looked happy. She looked like she'd never noticed I wasn't at a table, never noticed I wasn't in any of the family photos they'd taken before the ceremony, never noticed that her own mother was standing at the back of the room like a stranger who'd wandered in off the street. I turned and walked out. Behind me, I could hear the band playing and people laughing. Nobody followed me. Nobody noticed I was gone. I sat in my car in the country club parking lot for 20 minutes, hands shaking, trying to catch my breath. The life insurance money. Thomas's life insurance money. The money he'd left to take care of me, to make sure I was secure after he was gone. I'd spent nearly all of it on this wedding, on a day where I literally had no place. $62,000. That's what I'd paid. I knew because I'd been keeping a spreadsheet, planning how to manage the debt. $62,000, and I hadn't even been given a seat. I drove home, changed out of the rose-colored dress, made myself a cup of tea, and then I called my credit card company. "I need to dispute some charges," I said. The representative walked me through the process. Recent charges could be disputed if services weren't rendered as agreed. I had receipts. I had emails. I had a paper trail showing I was promised a mother of the bride role in this wedding, and that role had not been delivered. I disputed every charge from the last 60 days. The band, the flowers for the ceremony, the bar service, the cake, the videographer, the late additions to the menu, $38,000 in disputed charges. Then I called the photographer, who hadn't been paid yet. "I'm canceling my payment. I was told I'd be included in family photos, and I wasn't. We don't have a contract for services I didn't receive." I called the videographer. Same thing. It was past midnight when my phone started ringing. Isabella. I didn't answer. She called 6 more times. Then came the texts. Mom, what did you do? The club called. They're saying there's a problem with payment. You're embarrassing me. You're ruining everything. How could you do this on my wedding day? I turned off my phone and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. In the morning, there were 47 missed calls. Isabella, Marcus, Victoria. Numbers I didn't recognize. I blocked them all, except Isabella's. I listened to her voicemail. She was crying. Mom, please. The vendors are threatening to sue us. Marcus's father had to cover the band last minute. The club is holding our security deposit. Victoria is furious. Everyone is asking what's wrong with you, why you'd do something so cruel. Please call me back. Please fix this. I didn't call her back. Instead, I got dressed and drove to my lawyer's office. Robert Morrison had handled Thomas's estate. He was a good man, patient and fair. Caroline, what can I do for you? I told him everything. The exclusion from planning, the seating situation, the family photos, the missing seat, the $62,000 I'd spent from Thomas's life insurance. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing graver with each detail. You want to know if you can legally dispute the charges, he said finally. I want to know if I have any recourse at all. He leaned back in his chair. Morally, you're completely justified. Legally, it's complicated. You authorized the payments. The services were rendered, even if you weren't included in them. The credit card company might side with the vendors. My heart sank. So I can't get the money back? I didn't say that. I said it's complicated. He pulled out a notepad. Your late husband's life insurance was meant to provide for you. If you can demonstrate that your daughter or others exerted undue influence over you to spend that money, or if you can prove you were fraudulently led to believe you'd receive certain services you didn't receive, we might have a case. But it would be messy. It would likely destroy what's left of your relationship with your daughter. What relationship? I heard myself say. She didn't save me a seat at her own wedding, Robert. He nodded slowly. Then let me make some calls. Over the next 2 weeks, Robert worked with the credit card company and several of the vendors. Some charges stuck. Some were refunded. In total, I recouped about $22,000. Not everything, but enough to matter. Isabella came to my house. I'd been avoiding her, but she showed up unannounced, still in her honeymoon glow, her skin tan from Bora Bora. She stood on my front porch, and for a moment, she looked like my little girl again, the one who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, the one who'd called me her best friend. Mom, can we talk? I let her in. We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd hosted her 16th birthday party, where we'd celebrated her law school acceptance, where Thomas had taught her to play chess. I don't understand why you did this, she said. She wasn't crying now. She was angry. You humiliated me in front of Marcus's entire family. Do you know what Victoria said? That you're unstable. That grief has made you vindictive. Did Victoria mention why I wasn't seated at the reception? Isabella blinked. That was a mistake. The planner. It wasn't a mistake, Isabella. Your name was on every seating chart, every detail. You knew there wasn't enough room at the family table. You made room for Victoria. You made room for Marcus's Aunt Catherine, who I'd never even met before the rehearsal. You made room for his cousins, but not for me. That's different. The Ashworths. The Ashworths aren't your family. I am. I'm the one who raised you. I'm the one who sat up with you through every fever and heartbreak. I'm the one whose husband, your father, left me money to make sure I'd be okay after he died, and I spent that money on a wedding where I literally had no place. You're being dramatic. Those 3 words hung in the air between us. Get out, I said quietly. Mom, I said get out. She stood, grabbing her purse. When you're ready to apologize, you know where to find me. I'm not apologizing. You should be apologizing to me. You should be on your knees thanking me for everything I sacrificed for you. But you won't. Because Victoria Ashworth has convinced you that I'm not worth your time. She's been more of a mother to me in the past year than I was for the 28 years before that, I finished. Yes, Isabella. I heard you. Now get out of my house. She left. The door slammed behind her. I didn't cry until an hour later, when I was going through Thomas's old things and found the card Isabella had given him on his last Father's Day. It said, "To the best dad and mom in the world, I love you both so much." I wondered when that had changed, when I'd become someone to tolerate rather than love, when Victoria's opinion had started mattering more than mine, when my daughter had decided I was disposable. 3 months passed. I blocked Isabella's number after she sent a message saying she'd be willing to forgive me if I reimbursed Marcus's father for the expenses he'd covered. I got a part-time job at a bookstore. I'd retired from nursing after Thomas died, but I needed structure, needed purpose. The bookstore was quiet and calm, and the owner, a woman named Jean, didn't ask questions about why a former nurse was shelving mysteries and romance novels. One afternoon, Catherine Ashworth came in, Marcus's aunt, the woman who'd warned me. "Caroline," she said, surprised. "You work here?" "I do." She hesitated, then said, "Can I buy you coffee? After your shift?" We sat in a cafe down the street. Catherine ordered a latte. I got tea. "I want you to know that what Victoria did was wrong," she said. I told her so. We had a terrible fight about it at Christmas. She said you were Thomas's widow, not blood family, and that the wedding was about the Ashworths and the Petersons, meaning Isabella and Marcus. She said you were being too emotional, too demanding. "I asked for a seat," I said flatly. "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't speak up more loudly. I'm sorry I didn't." She stopped. "I'm sorry you were hurt. Does Isabella know what Victoria did?" Catherine looked down at her coffee. "Isabella knows what she wants to know. She's chosen to believe Victoria's version. That you overreacted, that you're bitter and jealous, that grief made you unstable. And you? What do you believe?" "I believe you were erased from your own daughter's wedding. I believe it was deliberate. And I believe Victoria will do the same thing to Isabella eventually, once she's gotten what she wants from the family connection." "What does she want?" "Control. She always has. It's why she pushed so hard for Marcus to marry someone from a good family, someone who looked right in photos. Isabella fit the image. You didn't. I absorbed this. Thank you for telling me. Will you ever forgive her? Isabella?" I thought about that question for a long time. "I don't know. Right now, I'm just trying to forgive myself for not seeing it sooner." Catherine nodded. She paid for our drinks and left. I never saw her again. 6 months after the wedding, I sold the house in Milford. Too many memories. Too many rooms that echoed with Thomas's voice and Isabella's laughter from when she was young. I bought a small cottage in Maine, right on the water. I'd always wanted to live by the ocean. Thomas had promised we'd do it when he retired. I brought the quilt my mother had made. I brought Thomas's favorite chair. I brought the photo albums from when Isabella was little, the ones I couldn't quite let go of yet. I didn't bring the rose-colored dress. I donated it to Goodwill. The cottage needed work, and I was happy to have projects. I painted the bedroom a soft blue. I planted a garden. I joined a book club with women my age, and slowly, I started to make friends who knew nothing about weddings or exclusion, or daughters who chose other mothers. 1 year after the wedding, I got a letter. Not an email, an actual letter, handwritten on cream-colored stationery. It was from Isabella. I almost didn't open it. I stood in my kitchen with the Maine sun streaming through the windows, holding the envelope, wondering if I had the strength for whatever was inside. I opened it. "Mom," it began. "I'm writing because Victoria suggested I should clear the air before the holidays. She says it's been long enough that you should be ready to apologize and move forward. She's planning a family gathering at their Fairfield house and thinks it would look better if you came. I've been thinking about what she said, and I agree it's time to put this behind us." What happened at the wedding was unfortunate, but I think we both said things we regret. If you're willing to apologize to Marcus's family for the embarrassment you caused, I'm willing to forgive you for overreacting. Victoria has also suggested that since you're living alone now, you might want to consider moving closer to us. There's a nice assisted living facility in Stamford that has openings. I know you're only 63, but they have independent living sections, and you'd be closer to us when we start having children. We're trying now, and Victoria thinks it's important for grandchildren to have access to both grandmothers equally. Let me know about Thanksgiving. We'll need a head count. Love, Isabella. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, walked outside to my little beach, and burned it. I didn't respond. Not that day, not ever. Because here's what I finally understood. My daughter didn't want a mother. She wanted someone to fit into the space Victoria Ashworth decided was appropriate. She wanted me to be grateful for scraps of attention, to apologize for having feelings, to accept that I would always be secondary to the family she'd married into. And I loved myself too much to accept that role. I loved myself too much to move into assisted living at 63, just to be geographically convenient for grandchildren I might never know. I loved myself too much to spend Thanksgiving at a table where I'd be tolerated rather than treasured. I loved the daughter Isabella had been. I mourned the relationship we'd lost, but I wouldn't set myself on fire to keep her warm anymore. That night, I sat on my porch watching the sunset over the Atlantic. I thought about Thomas, about how proud he'd always been of Isabella. I wondered what he'd think of who she'd become. I wanted to believe he'd be disappointed, that he'd have stood up for me, would have told her this wasn't who they'd raised her to be. But maybe he wouldn't have. Maybe he would have said, "Caroline, don't make trouble. It's her wedding. Let it go." Maybe I'd spent so many years being the peacekeeper, the accommodating one, that everyone assumed I always would be. Well, I wasn't anymore. I was a woman who lived by the ocean, who worked in a bookstore and planted tomatoes and made friends who valued her, who slept well at night because she'd finally chosen herself. Did I miss my daughter? Every single day. Did I regret standing up for myself? Not once. 2 years later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered it. "Mrs. Peterson?" A young woman's voice. "This is Dr. Sharma from Greenwich Hospital. Your daughter, Isabella Ashworth, has listed you as her emergency contact. She's in labor, and she's asking for you." My hands started shaking. "Is she okay?" "She's fine. The delivery is progressing normally, but she's very emotional and keeps asking us to call you." I sat down. "Did her husband come with her?" "He's here, yes, and his mother, but she's asking for you specifically." I closed my eyes, saw Isabella at 5 years old, crying for me after she fell off her bike, saw her at 13, begging me to stay home from school with her when she had her first heartbreak, saw her at 21, calling me from law school in tears because she thought she wasn't smart enough. "Tell her," I said slowly, "that I hope everything goes well. Tell her congratulations, but I'm not coming." "Mrs. Peterson, I'm not coming," I repeated. "She has her family there. Victoria is there. She'll be fine." I hung up. I sat very still for a long time, waiting for the guilt to crush me. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt something lighter, something like freedom. Because here's the truth about love. It's a verb, not just a feeling. It's shown in actions, in presence, in making space for the people who matter. Isabella had shown me, in 100 small ways and one big devastating one, that I didn't matter enough to save a seat for. So I didn't save space in my life for more hurt. 3 hours later, another call. This time, I recognized the number. Isabella. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I played it the next morning. "Mom." Her voice was thick with tears, exhausted. "I had a girl. Her name is Caroline Rose. After you, and after your favorite flower. I wanted you here. I kept thinking you'd come. Victoria said you would, that you couldn't possibly stay away from your first grandchild. But you didn't come." And I realized sitting there in that hospital bed, that I couldn't remember the last time I'd chosen you. The last time I'd put you first. The last time I'd made you feel like you mattered more than Marcus's family or Victoria's opinion or what looked good in photos. I don't know if you'll forgive me. I don't know if I deserve it, but I named her after you because I wanted part of you here, even if you couldn't be. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I saved that voicemail. I didn't delete it, but I didn't call her back either, because sorry wasn't enough. Not yet, maybe not ever. Maybe someday, little Caroline Rose would ask about her grandmother, the one she was named after. Maybe Isabella would tell her the truth, or maybe she'd make up something easier. But that was their story to write, not mine. Mine was here, in this cottage by the sea, where I'd learned that peace was better than approval, that self-respect was better than family obligation, and that sometimes loving yourself means walking away from people who've forgotten how to love you back. I'm 64 now. I volunteer at the library. I take watercolor classes. I have a small circle of friends who meet every Tuesday for dinner. I'm learning to play the guitar, something I'd always wanted to do, and I'm happy. Not perfectly happy. Not without sadness happy. But the kind of happy that comes from knowing your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. My daughter made a choice at her wedding. She chose image over substance, approval over love, her new family over her old one. And I made a choice too. I chose myself. Some people think that makes me cold, unforgiving, a bad mother, but I think it makes me human. And finally, after 64 years, I think it makes me free.